Greetings. My name is Alyssa Jones, and I am a teacher candidate at the School of Education at Liberty University. This presentation is on viewing as a language art, and it goes through the instructional information provided in EDLC 623, Literacy, Language, and Instruction. We're going to define viewing as a language art, analyze its significance, support its necessity for instruction in the elementary educational classroom, and then talk about some unique features viewing provides to the English language learner and students with dyslexia. Language is foundational to communication. Without language, we as mankind are very limited in how we can communicate with one another. God in His great wisdom gave us the ability to communicate through language, though. And the language arts, the 6 of them, they do their best to describe all the ways that we do communicate with one another. And viewing is one of those 6 language arts. It's one of the 3 that we receive information, much like we receive information when we read and when we listen. As we view images through paintings, graphics, nature, facial expressions, any image that we receive through the retina, we're taking in vast amounts of information that are then processed cognitively. That information is transformed instantaneously into meaning, which is pretty remarkable and also particular to the language art of viewing. Viewing is an experience. It's something that our mind and soul both participate in. And it's activated by this beautiful cacophony of visual elements like line and shape and color and hue and tone and depth, contrast, composition, balance. As the mind takes all of that in, then the question naturally follows, what do you think? So what do we do with that information as teachers? Our technologically advanced society floods our minds with images every day. It's an overload through computer screens, tablets, phones, social media, and students they're subject to this water hose of information. And they need to have a way to understand it and to process it, to sort it, to analyze it, and ultimately we want them to judge what they see. This is why explicit instruction in viewing is critical and necessary in the classroom. Students need to learn how to view the images that they encounter. While students can often communicate how an image makes them feel, they need explicit instruction on how to analyze what they're seeing. And since images convey a multitude of meaning, students need tools to help them parse that meaning critically. So teachers need to teach all the elements of art, like color theory, line, how these things convey hyperbole. Political cartoons are ripe with humor, but students need to understand the components of a political cartoon in order to understand their significance. Other things like maps, graphs, icons, symbols, fonts, logos, these are all practical images that they encounter every day, and they need to be incorporated into the classroom so the students have lots of opportunities to interact with them and apply them and grow in their skills on how to interpret them. Beyond the practical implications for teaching viewing as a language art, students are going to be able to take those skills that they've learned in the classroom and apply them to their life and then experience culture, experience the story of mankind through art. And that's an invaluable gift that teachers can give their students. Fine art is a window into the human experience across time and age, and as students learn to skillfully interact with fine art, they're going to gain a lifelong gift. Visual images are one of the best scaffolds for English language learners. They are a nonverbal tool of communication. In a study on the function of multimodality instruction across content, A TESOL scholar, Scott Grappin, discusses how English language learners benefit from visual images as they develop language proficiency. Based on his findings, he contributes the idea that all students benefit from multimodality instruction across content because it's essential to diverse meaning making. Grappin, 2023. His application for teachers is to use multimodality instruction regularly for language development because visual language is a valuable component of learning. Grappin's research and conclusions support the practice of viewing as a language art. The communication and information that viewers receive through the act of viewing are different for various learners. Dyslexic students are a gifted bunch who are often seen as those who have a disability instead of a different ability. In an interesting article that examined the visual input processing of the retina and the brain, astrophysicists and educational experts discussed the differences between the visual input of central bias versus peripheral bias. Schneps and his colleagues state that the brain functions so differently between how it processes input taken through a central focus point and how it processes information taken in through a peripheral focal point. The image kind of gives you a visual of what these researchers are talking about. In the center, there is the focus of what's in the middle of the circle, and this has more systematic and visual search application for the brain, the neurological brain that receives information with a bias towards the central. For the brain who takes an input neurologically from the peripheral, that information is received in a more like a quick contrast, and which is very interesting because dyslexics favor, or they have a bias towards the peripheral versus the central. So that makes sense given their difficulty in visual search when it comes to reading. They're going to struggle more with the visual search ability because their retina is taking in what they see with a bias towards the peripheral. So when it comes to viewing and teaching viewing as a language art, I think this has interesting applications because sometimes our images that we look at, they do need to have more of a visual search. But other times that gift of being able to take it on all at once is going to shine. And I think that as teachers we could be aware of this gifting and struggle and take that into account as we teach viewing as a language art. Thank you for joining me today in this journey through the language art of viewing. Here you'll find my resources that I used for this presentation, and I hope that you enjoyed it.